All right, hey, what's up everybody? Landon with LMR.com. In this video, we're talking about Hydroboost conversion for the foxbody Mustang. We're also going to show you how most of these components get installed. So you're probably wondering, what even is a Hydroboost? Well, in the simplest of terms, a Hydroboost is a type of power brake system that utilizes hydraulic pressure from the power steering pump to assist with applying the brakes. A Hydroboost first made its debut in the 1996 V8 Mustang when Ford made the switch to the 4.6 liter modular engine. Due to the overall size of that engine, space constraints forced the engineers to go to a Hydroboost setup with the V8 cars. The Hydroboost setup would be used in all V8 Mustangs through the 2004 model year. All right, so the next question, well, why do I need a Hydroboost for a foxbody Mustang? Well, over all the years, if you're swapping a modular engine, mainly Coyote at the time of this video, the Godzilla engine's gaining in popularity, and really any engine where its physical size prohibits you from running a vacuum booster, you have to run the Hydroboost setup. Scenario 2 would be to do the Hydroboost conversion with the traditional 302 or 351 base small block Ford setup. Where this is beneficial, especially on those engines with aggressive camshafts where vacuum may fluctuate, that's going to affect your braking performance. Going to a Hydroboost, you won't have to worry about any of that. And not to mention the Hydroboost setup in a foxbody Mustang over the vacuum booster, it's just a better setup. So speaking of this being a better setup, we took two of our shop cars and recorded front and rear braking pressure. Both cars have aftermarket camshafts with a healthy idle. One car has a 1993 Cobra style vacuum booster with SN95 Cobra disc brakes, and the other car has this Hydroboost setup with SN95 Cobra disc brakes. And by looking at the chart, you can see the drastic increase in braking pressure between the systems. Not to mention, this is very noticeable between the cars, especially driving them back to back. All right, so now let's talk about some component details real quick. We're gonna kind of offer this in a few different flavors, so to speak. We'll have the all-in kit, in the form of manual or automatic transmission, and then we'll also take some of these things and dice them up, depending on each and every single scenario. We know a lot of you out there have probably sourced a used Hydroboost, from a donor car. You may have already built a plumbing kit. Pick a scenario as to where you may find yourself in your Hydroboost conversion. So that's the reason why you'll see some of this diced up on the website as well. All right, so taking a closer look at the components that make up the Hydroboost conversion, we'll start with the Hydroboost unit itself. This is a brand new unit. It is not remanufactured, and it shares the same design as the Hydroboost unit from a 1999 to 2004 Mustang. It has a nice black finish, and then the brake booster push rod will be adjustable to dial in the length for the bore in the master cylinder. The backing plate has already been modified so that each of the pre-installed studs and the hole that we add to the backing plate line up directly to the firewall. Now, due to the position of the Hydroboost retaining nut here on the back side, you will have to remove some material on the firewall, which we give you a template that you cut out, you tape it to the firewall, you place a mark, and then you make your modifications. On the front side of the Hydroboost, you'll notice a pre-installed stud. This is for the master cylinder. There will also be a nut. Make sure this stud is tight. It is a left-hand thread, so lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. We'll touch base on the other open hole whenever we jump over here to the master cylinder. On the back side of the Hydroboost, on the 3 pressed-in studs, will be 3 retaining nuts. These will get removed, Hydroboost gets installed, nuts go back on. We're gonna retain the Hydroboost to the car. And then lastly, the open hole, you will use the provided nut and bolt in this location to secure the Hydroboost to the car. All right, so switching gears over here to the power steering pump. This is a brand new unit as well, not remanufactured. It is a C2 style Ford power steering pump from the foxbody era, so to speak. This is not a traditional foxbody pump. This pump has higher pressure so that it matches up correctly to what the Hydroboost needs to properly function. A traditional pump that is specific for a foxbody will not work for a Hydroboost setup due to the lower pressure. For this power steering pump, you will need to transfer your cast bracket and the pulley, or whenever you purchase all of this stuff, you can get a brand new cast bracket, new retaining hardware, and a new pulley to kind of add to all the newness. All right, so the master cylinder. This is a master cylinder designed for a 1999 to 2004 Mustang GT with traction control. Now, the reason why I put some emphasis on traction control, because that's important for the adapter lines that connect the master cylinder to the factory proportioning valve located on the driver's side strut tower. So with this particular master cylinder, you're gonna have 2 options. You're gonna have adapter lines for an early foxbody or adapter lines for a later foxbody. A stud is pre-installed into this master cylinder, like I made mention previously. This will get situated into the upper spot on the Hydroboost, and we do provide an extra retaining nut that secures the upper stud of the master cylinder to the Hydroboost. The master cylinder will have an extra stud provided. You won't use this, so you can just either toss it in the trash or put it in the bolt bin. Moving along here, up next are the specific pedals. Other than all the other stuff, this is one of the more important pieces, I guess you could say, of the Hydroboost conversion. We built this pedal specific for the Hydroboost conversion. It has a little bit different ratio that is correct for the Hydroboost. We've integrated the pad for the cruise control dump valve on the pedal assembly. We got the proper tube situated up here that attaches it to the pedal assembly with washers and the inner sleeve. This is already pre-greased, so if you want to add just a little bit more to it upon assembly, you can. And then like I mentioned before, you'll either have a manual or automatic version, depending on the transmission that's in your car. The manual has a little bit more narrow of a pad. The automatic has a little bit wider pad. These brake pedals are hand fabricated and then finished in a satin black powder coat. Okay, shifting gears over here to some of the plumbing, specifically the hoses. Depending on what you're doing, be it modular, Coyote, something like that, or if you still have a small block Ford, be it 302 or 351, the plumbing kits will ever so slightly differ. But each plumbing kit will have the correct supply hoses and the correct return hoses for their applications. The supply hoses have the correct high pressure braided hose and then steel fittings. These steel fittings have the correct degree bends so that they get situated correctly from component to component. The return hoses are pretty simple in how they're working. You'll have a factory style return hose off of the rack to the cooler tube. And then again, depending on that kit that you're purchasing for whatever engine's in your car, the return hose setups will slightly differ. You'll get a little bit more bulk hose in the modular Coyote kit than you are with the pushrod kit, but both kits will have the 90-degree to straight rubber hose that comes off the Hydroboost and will go to the T-fitting, which we'll touch base on here in just a moment. All right, now let's talk about some of the fittings and miscellaneous items related to the Hydroboost conversion. Up first will be the banjo fittings and crush washers that get installed into the Hydroboost. These are pretty straightforward in how they operate and where they go. The banjo fitting with the larger outer diameter will install into the centermost portion of the Hydroboost, and then the banjo fitting with the smaller diameter will install here to the outermost portion of the Hydroboost. All right, up next are the AN conversion fittings for the steering rack. You're gonna get two, but you'll only use one. The one that you're gonna use in this scenario will be the one that has the gold zinc plating. This gets installed into the lower port on the steering rack, and make sure you install the correct diameter Teflon washer. In order to get those on fittings like this, you may have to gently open them up with a pair of pliers, or you can run them under warm or hot water for a little bit and then kind of stretch them out with your fingers and then roll them into position. You install it until it gets between the groove underneath the flange and just above the first thread. The other AN conversion fitting will be the one for the power steering pump. This is going to seal via a copper crush washer. Whenever you go to install this into the power steering pump, just make sure that copper crush washer is evenly situated between the flange on the fitting and the port in the power steering pump. All the return hoses will get plumbed together, utilizing the T-fitting and the constant tension hose clamps. Loctite 545 will also be provided. That way you can apply some to all of your hydraulic fittings. You don't have to necessarily install the Loctite on the banjo fittings, but if you want to, it's not gonna hurt anything. The last few miscellaneous items will be the Hydroboost seal that installs onto the Hydroboost bracket itself and basically cushions the unit between the firewall, and then you will have the pedal assembly spacer. This gets installed in between the pedal assembly and the interior portion of the firewall. The bosses will make contact, or they'll face the firewall, and then the smooth portion will face or make contact with the pedal assembly. And then to top it all off, we're going to give you a generous amount of zip ties. That way you can situate all your hoses nice and clean, make sure they're out of the way of everything. And then speaking of out of the way of everything, depending on the exhaust setup that you're running, like here on Blue Collar, we're probably gonna have to come back and source some heat protective tape or loom, because the header primary is about 3-4 inches away from one of our supply lines. All right, so some other videos you probably need to watch and other things to consider. Number one, we already have a video on how to properly bleed the power steering system. The other video will be how to remove and install a power steering pump pulley. We'll leave links to those down in the video description. As far as bleeding the brakes are concerned, it's not as difficult as it may seem. Whenever you get the master cylinder installed, you put some brake fluid in your reservoir. You'll vacuum bleed your two bleeders here on the master cylinder, and then you can do your traditional bleed on the car. Just start at the caliper furthest from the master cylinder and then work your way accordingly. So passenger rear, passenger front, driver front. If you have a vacuum bleeder, that will make life a little bit easier for you. And then finally, not to scare anybody off, but we want to be completely transparent with you. When we're talking about kits like these, there's a decent amount of sweat equity involved, okay? You're modifying a firewall. You're taking off old parts. You're working underneath the dash, pulling a pedal assembly, reinstalling a pedal assembly. You're making sure hoses are situated correctly. You're gonna be working in tight areas. This by no means is a walk in the park, but once you're done with it, you talk about the fruits of your labor, this is going to be extremely rewarding. So the car we're gonna feature in this video will be good old Project Blue Collar. We got a little bit of work to do on it. You'll see some things, it's like, what the heck, that's all hodgepodge. Trust us, we gotta fix it. Like everything around here, it's always a work in progress. So let's get started. All right, everybody, so where we're at right now, I've got everything torn apart. We've got removal videos on just about all of this stuff. We'll leave links to it down in the description. But power steering rack's out of the way. Power steering pump has been removed. Electric fans are gone. If you have a clutch fan, you'll have to remove this as well to get the power steering pump off. Steering column's out of the car, master cylinder, brake booster, as well as the pedal assembly. Working with the pedal assembly, that is an absolute pain in the rear, okay? You're gonna have to get the seat out of the car, remove a little bit of your interior trim, and then you'll have access to the pedal assembly. You'll have to drop the column support bolts from the dash, remove the column to the steering linkage, get that out of the way, and then you can get the pedal assembly out of the way. But to kind of help you all understand what's going on, I have this mock-up dash behind us. We'll take a look at what this would look like inside of the car. Now I get it, you know, this is essentially a skeleton. You know, it's a dash that's been cut out of a car, so missing a ton of pieces here. But once you get to this point, you've got the column removed, you're ready to pull the pedal assembly. You have the 4 nuts securing the pedal assembly to the firewall, and then you will also have a bar that attaches right here on the dash, kind of runs this direction and gets situated underneath this spot here on the pedal assembly. This is a 1/2-inch bolt, okay? So you're going to have to remove the 8mm bolt right here from the dash, gently pull out on the dash assembly, don't yank on it, gently pull out on the dash assembly, get you a box end wrench behind there, preferably a ratcheting box end wrench. You'll loosen this 1/2-inch bolt enough for you to rotate that support bar down and away from the pedal assembly. And kind of in this general area right here is a stud. We're missing a few pieces on this particular dash, but you will have to remove that nut secured to the stud on kind of this sub-assembly in order to get the pedal assembly out. So I've only attached 1 nut for reference here on the pedal assembly, but you will need long extensions, like so. Long extension, all the nuts are 9/16, but this upper left one, which is the one I put back in, you'll need a 1/4 inch extension with a 1/4 inch 9/16. That way you can feed it past the clutch arm. The 3/8 drive extension and the 3/8 socket is just a little too big to get it in this cavity. So this will be the only spot you use 1/4 inch. You could use 1/4 inch around the rest of it as well, but that is just kind of a good tech tip to know in order to get that upper left nut off of the brake booster. Okay, so down here for the brake light switch, this is what activates your brake lights and the tail lights. You're gonna have this little cotter pin attached to the brake pedal arm. You'll just take it like a little hook tool and pull it out. I'm gonna have to be kind of gentle here because we just got this dash mocked up. But you'll pull this clip out, and then what you'll do, you kind of have to dance the brake light switch as well as the booster rod off of the brake pedal dowel. So you'll kind of push it away from the brake pedal. Your bushing will fall off first, and then this brake pedal switch is actually slotted, so you can get it to a position off of the pedal arm and just pull out. So you notice this is close-ended, this is open-end. The open end is gonna go towards the driver's side. And you're gonna put this on the Hydroboost assembly the same way it was on this vacuum brake booster. And then here is the brake booster arm or rod, whatever you want to call it, bushing. We'll give you a new one of these. So once that's disconnected, amongst all the other things, don't forget your vacuum hose here on the brake dump valve, deactivates cruise control. This car also didn't have a clutch cable, so don't forget to remove the clutch cable eyelet from the quadrant. Then you can go ahead and loosen all those nuts that retain the pedal assembly to the firewall. Again, this is just for mock-up purposes. You'll have to kind of finagle this pedal assembly out of the car in the correct manner. It's not gonna come out this easy. You'll kind of have to roll it out, but that'll come out of the car. And then the brake booster is pretty self-explanatory. You'll have to remove it from the firewall and then feed it past all of the things in that area within the engine bay. All right, everybody, we've got the firewall modified here with blue collar. The way we did that, we took the template, cut it out with a sharp knife, aligned all of the holes, and then we marked the larger center hole. I then removed the template and pushed the firewall insulator away back from the firewall. That way it wouldn't kind of interfere with the body saw. But the best way to cut this is to cut vertical slits all the way up to your mark. Try to group them as close as you can together. But just know, as you make your cuts and that metal gets thin in areas, the inboard sheet metal may want to roll inward towards the inside of the car. No big deal. Make as many of the vertical cuts as you can, and then you can come back with that body saw and cut all those away. After that, use a cartridge roll or a flap wheel to smooth out any rough edges and deburr the firewall. Resituate your firewall insulator and then modify that as well. I tried the body saw, I tried a sharp knife. Didn't really have too good of results with either of those, so I just used the flap wheel and essentially just melted the firewall insulator. It's made of, has a rubber backing, so know that when you do that, you're gonna create friction, you're gonna create heat. It'll start to smoke and it'll smell like a burnout. Just a heads up, but it cleaned it up pretty nice. So we're ready to add some touch-up paint here to the areas that have raw metal, and then we can get the Hydroboost assembly situated. Okay, so before we load the Hydroboost into the car, we do need to adjust the brake booster push rod. This is very, very easy to do. They make specific tools for this, so if you have it in your arsenal, feel free to use it. You can purchase one if you want to do that, or you can just kind of use some tools that you have laying around at home in your cabinet. Regardless, you will need some sort of straight edge and a caliper, okay? There's 3 measurements we're gonna have to get. The first measurement will be the face of the flange here on the master cylinder to the base of the radius in the bore. That's measurement 1. Measurement 2 is going to be the face of the master cylinder itself that butts up against the Hydroboost to the face of the flange. That is measurement 2. You'll take measurement 1 and subtract measurement 2 to obtain measurement 3. Measurement 3 will be the distance from the face of the Hydroboost to the tip of the brake booster push rod. So you will translate that measurement the best you can from your caliper to your brake booster push rod. What you can do for measurement 3, you could also subtract 10 thou from that measurement. That'll give you a little bit of leeway, because more than likely, if you went straight up with measurement 3 from the subtraction, you'll probably have some preload on the master cylinder. So subtract 10 thou, go from there. I've got this right on the money. I did subtract the 10 thou from my measurement 3, but that wasn't enough. I had just a little bit of preload on the master cylinder, so I had to back this off about 1 full turn, and then we were good to go. So the way you would adjust this, take you some vice grips, grab the knurled part of the brake booster push rod. You can use the stud for leverage. It's gonna be a 5/16 jam nut. You'll crack that open, make your adjustments so that it matches your 3rd measurement. You'll resituate your jam nut, and before you tighten it down and before you move the tip here from the brake booster push rod, you'll want to place a mark on either a flat or a corner or something. That way you have a reference of center line. Because what can happen when you go to tighten the jam nut, you could accidentally rotate this a little bit, and that's going to change your measurement. So, you know, we could come here and say, hey, look here, this is the center point of this Hydroboost and this little notch, and we have a little corner here between the flats that we can mark. So we would use that as our center line. If that was to rotate clockwise or counterclockwise, we would know that we need to come back just a little bit before we fully tighten our jam nut. So make the adjustments that you need. Then once you're good to go, the Hydroboost can be installed on the car. All right, so brake booster push rod's dialed in, we're ready to go, but we will need to go ahead and install the gasket onto the Hydroboost. All right, so we got the gasket installed, seal, whatever you want to call it. Pretty obvious in how this goes, but the elongated hole will get situated down here at the double hole in the Hydroboost bracket. Before you stick it, make sure you wipe assembly oil, stuff like that off of it. I went with a glass cleaner. I like Sprayway, works really good to clean parts without being too harsh. We got our seal installed. Now we're gonna remove the plugs from the ports. Look them over. Make sure there's no obvious debris or anything like that. If there is, flush it with some compressed air or wipe it up with a microfiber towel. So those ports will be occupied by the provided Banjo bolts, these are pretty obvious in how these go. They're gonna have a larger outer diameter and a narrow diameter. Larger diameter is gonna go here, close to the center of the Hydroboost. Smaller diameter is gonna go out here on this block. Make sure you have the crush washers installed. So you'll have one up here underneath the banjo bolt head and in between the fitting, and then you'll have another crush washer underneath the banjo fitting. We'll go ahead and thread this into place. We're gonna point this straight out. Same thing with the smaller diameter fitting. Make sure your crush washers are situated correctly. Okay, and I believe this is going to face out. We'll fact check that real quick with our hoses. Okay, good there. We are good there. All right, we got the banjo bolts installed, clocked correctly. We can do some final clocking on these after we get it installed and we kind of run some of the hoses. All right, good friendly reminder to do one final cleanup before this goes in. Wipe the firewall down, vacuum up some of the metal shavings, air compressor, whatever floats your boat. But you're gonna wanna come at an angle first, get it situated past some of the existing components, and then we'll feed it down against the firewall, like so. All right, and we can still get to these fittings with a box end wrench. Make sure we're not pinched up against anything. Okie dokie. Here we go. So now we need to address the pedal assembly. So to get the factory brake pedal off of the car, we're gonna remove these E-clips. You can probably pull them straight out if you can. If not, use your little hook tool to get them out of the way. Just don't lose them. Of course, this is an aftermarket quadrant. By some divine miracle, if you have a factory quadrant, you'll kind of have to do a little bit different stuff here since it's two plastic pieces. But once that's out of the way, we can move the clutch pedal back up in its normal resting position, and that'll give us access to this bolt. And there's the nut on the back side that retains the brake pedal to the pedal assembly. All right, so we got our setup here, 10 mil wrench on the bolt head, 13 mil socket on the nuts. Let's see if we can crack this loose. If you got a vise, you may jig it up. That way it's a little bit easier to remove. Impact probably help. I think this is a deformed locking nut, so it's gonna be kind of snug the whole way off. And we will get this out of our way, followed by the factory pedal assembly. All I'm gonna do today, we're gonna scuff our points where the new washers on the new pedal will sit, and we'll get it installed. Okay, so here's the new pedal. It's gonna arrive with a zip tie on it. I wanna cut that zip tie off. So this has already been pre-lubricated with some grease. If you wanna add a little bit more, you can. White lithium grease will work. We're also gonna lubricate these washers along with the contact area here on the pedal assembly. Take the time, clean up your bolt, just scuff it with a wire brush or put it on the wire wheel, whatever you have. So a little bit of grease here where those washers will make contact. So pedal's only gonna go one way. It's gonna match the trajectory of the clutch pedal if you didn't remove it, but you'll get how this gets situated. We're gonna have to try to place this and this, use the grease that's already on here to hold these washers. Now the dance is gonna be, don't knock them off, putting it on. Oh boy, I better buy a lotto ticket. Doesn't really matter which way the nut or bolt went. Oh yeah, that's clean. And we just want this snug. Sweet. Good to go. Just got to put our clutch quadrant back on. All right, we're gonna go back on with our quadrant in the same orientation it was when we took it off. Voila. Pedal assembly is now ready to be reinstalled. We can adjust our dump valve switch when we get it in the car, and then install the brake light switch, new washer, bushing, and clip. And then lastly will be the pedal pad. We'll want to do this with it attached. That way we have some structure. Because trying to do this and juggle it, I mean, you can probably get it on there, but I'm not gonna fight myself. And it's not a make or break to install it here on the bench versus putting it on when the pedal assembly's in the car. Okay, so reinstalling your pedal assembly into the car. At first, I set the Hydroboost into the firewall, got the spacer in place, but because of the angle that you have to manipulate the pedal assembly up into the car, you're gonna have to have help from somebody else to kind of bring the Hydroboost away from the firewall, get the studs kind of flush with that spacer so you can roll the pedal assembly into place and then have your assistant push the Hydroboost assembly into the car. Once it's in the car, you can thread on your retaining nuts, reinstall the brake light switch. The small nut that holds the top of the pedal assembly to the dash. There's that larger bolt that also holds the pedal assembly to the top of the dash. Kind of get all that stuff situated, swing your support rod back into place. That's attached over here to the side. Retighten that bolt for the support bar or support rod, and then that 8mm bolt securing the dash frame to the A-pillar here as well. The brake dump valve for the cruise control, you'll thread that back in. You'll kind of get that adjusted where it needs to be. Once all of the retaining bolts are situated for the pedal assembly, do one final once over, because at this point, you're ready to go back in with the steering column, multifunction switch, all that good stuff, get it reconnected, and then you can install the pedal pad. Alrighty, so a master cylinder is installed. Pretty straightforward in how this works. Master cylinder is going to install onto the Hydroboost, and then you are going to install the two retaining nuts. Just get those nice and tight. You don't have to crank down on them. Once that's finished, you can route and install your master cylinder to factory brake proportioning valve hardline kit. This kit's going to be different for different year ranges of foxbody, so just make sure you purchase the right kit. We're using the kit for a later model foxbody with the 9904 Mustang GT master cylinder. This is the one with traction control, so you have to purchase the line kit for traction control. We're not gonna bore you to death with the install because I'm just gonna add confusion. Follow the instructions, it's super easy to do. The only headache is getting all these tube nut fittings nice and tight. I went ahead and used a traditional open end wrench. If you do this, just be careful you don't round the tube nut. If you do, you're gonna have a bad day. I would just fully tighten them down with the flare nut wrench. And speaking of tightening, these need to be threaded in by hand until they are ready to be tightened. Do not start at a few turns and then try to start turning it with a wrench, because you don't want to cross thread this. You're gonna have a mess on your hands. And then lastly, adjustable wrench. You wanna hold that T-fitting while you tighten the 3 brake lines that are connected to the T-fitting. You're probably wondering why we didn't bench bleed this. You really don't need to bench bleed this type of master cylinder. It has bleeder screws up here at each port. So all we have to do is fill this with fluid, crack open our bleeders, and then bam, we're bled. Still gonna have to do a brake bleed anyway because we've opened the system. All right, everybody, power steering pump's on the car. Of course, we give you a brand new one. So you'll either transfer your existing pulley to the new pump or purchase a new pulley along with this kit. I went the route of a new pulley. That way I didn't have to remove and then reinstall. I also went with a new cast power steering pump bracket. That's available on the site as well, along with hardware. After that, you reverse the removal steps for the bracket. The pump's gonna go on the long stud that's hanging off of the accessory drive. Bracket goes back into place, and then all the hardware will fall behind it. Get it all tightened down, and the pump is good to go. I did forget to install the high pressure fitting into the pump while it was on the bench. Not super critical. We still have room right here to easily install this. So we're gonna install that now because we'll need to use the Loctite 545 for the other hydraulic fittings. Okay, so here are the components that we're gonna need to apply the Loctite 545 to. You're gonna get 2 steel AN conversion fittings. You're not going to use the larger diameter fitting. So instead of using that, we're using a factory style return hose. So this hose right here, hard line into a rubber hose, will install into the upper fitting on the steering rack. It already has a Teflon washer pre-installed, so all we'll need to do to this is apply the Loctite 545. The gold zinc coated AN fitting we'll install into the lower port on the steering rack. This will also get Loctite 545, as well as one of the provided Teflon washers. You'll know right away which size is correct because it almost slides on, but gives you a little bit of resistance. So basically the way you kind of get this, you can stretch it out carefully with like a pair of snap ring pliers, let it soak in warm water. Whatever you decide to do, both work great, but I've had good luck of gently threading it onto the fitting and I'm good to go. So that's ready for Loctite 545. You'll have kind of an assortment of other Teflon washers. These won't be needed. Here is the aluminum AN conversion fitting for the power steering pump. Would give you a copper crush washer. That goes into place here. This fitting will also get Loctite 545. All right, we'll go ahead and apply that to all these fittings and we'll get them in place. So up first, we'll have the factory style hard line to rubber hose. Don't need a lot of Loctite 545, just enough to cover the threads. We can go ahead and get that started here into the rack. This is a new rack. I'm doing it on the bench because I removed the other one. On these type of fittings, you want to go all the way in by hand. Do not turn them a few turns and then put a wrench on it, just like I talked about on those master cylinder conversion lines. So we got this one started, and we're just gonna run it down with the wrench. So the goal here is you want to crush the Teflon washer, okay? So you may notice, oh, what the heck, it's not tight. Well, there was an O-ring on this fitting as well. Once hydraulic pressure is applied, this will become pretty snug. Next, we'll go to that gold zinc fitting, Loctite 545 in the same manner as we did for that factory style hose. We'll thread this in by hand. Same rules are gonna apply. These technically have a torque spec of 22 pound-feet, foot-pounds, whatever. But you just wanna crush the crush washer. Both of these are 11/16 wrenching size. Wiping off the Loctite just so we can inspect the Teflon washer. Okay, we got a nice squish on it. Not too much, not too little. Okay, that's ready to go. Now we'll do the Loctite 545 here on the aluminum fitting that's gonna go into the power steering pump. Same rules apply. We can thread this into the pump. This is a 13/16 fitting, and this is a copper crush washer. So this will tighten up until the crush washer has a little bit of squish to it. It's always better to be a little loose on hydraulic fittings and have a drip and tighten up accordingly than go be too tight and you can't go backwards. Because once you've compressed your washers, they're one-time use. And that completes the hydraulic fittings. If you're doing this in the car, it's not as easy. You have limited working room. So you may find yourself completely removing the rack to do this. And to get the rack out of the way from what you've already done, it's a matter of 2 castle nuts and knocking the spindle with a hammer to free the outer tie rod. All right, so on the push rod kit specifically, since that's what we're working with, the hose with the straight fitting and the 90-degree fitting will connect to the centermost port on the Hydroboost and the pump. You'll install this hose on the banjo fitting first, route it beside the master cylinder, and then install the other end onto the pump. The straight fitting connects to the Hydroboost, the 90-degree fitting connects to the pump. The second high pressure hose has a 90-degree fitting and a 45-degree fitting. The 90 connects to the outermost port on the Hydroboost and the 45 connects to the lower port on the rack. Route this alongside the other hose. Remove the cap from the return fitting on the Hydroboost. Use one of the provided constant tension hose clamps and install the 90-degree bend on the rubber hose onto this fitting. Use another constant tension clamp and secure the return hose from the steering rack to the upper fitting on the cooler tube. Take the straight return hose and secure it to the lower fitting on the cooler tube. Now go ahead and secure the bottom portion of the T fitting to the return hose coming from the Hydroboost unit. Cut 3 inches off of the hose that you just installed onto the lower fitting on the cooler tube and secure it with clamps to the T fitting and the lower return port on the pump. Secure the hose from the cooler tube to the last spot on the T fitting. Finalize all the hose routing and tighten the banjo bolts in the Hydroboost. Make sure the outermost fitting is clocked in a way so that the tube nut on the AN fitting does not make contact with the distribution block. These will have a 24mm wrenching size, and it's important that you support the AN fittings at the collar with a 13/16 wrench while you tighten the banjo bolts. After that, you can tighten all of the AN fittings with an 11/16 wrench. Go ahead and neatly secure the hoses with the provided zip ties. Don't forget to remove the vacuum hose from the tree that was connected to the original booster. Block this off with a simple vacuum cap. So now that everything related to the Hydroboost is installed, you can reinstall and finalize the other components that were removed or rerouted. Per usual, just double and triple check everything. Once all that is situated, fill the master cylinder and bleed the brakes. Then fill and bleed the power steering pump. After that, you're good to go. All right, everybody, so that's a wrap. Hope you appreciated this one as much as we enjoyed putting all this stuff together for you. But like I said, not necessarily a walk in the park when it comes to the installation stuff, but hey, that's just kind of the nature of the beast when you're dealing with intricate kits like this. Speaking of those intricacies, if you find yourself with any questions related to anything, reach out to our customer care team, drop us a comment here on the video. We'll be sure you're taken care of. And as always, if you find value in what we're doing, please consider liking the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and then until we see you in the next one, for all things Foxbody, keep it right here with the real enthusiasts, LMR.com.